Hello, Steve White, Steve Arts89. Well, I just did a review for all six of the Psycho films, the first four films, the remake, and the awful Bates Motel TV movie slash pilot for a series that never happened, thank God, but could have been brilliant had they done it the right way. I just want to talk a little bit about the franchise as a whole, and also the 60th anniversary release of the film, because there's been a lot of releases of the film. Back in the day, my video store didn't have the original release, so I ended up watching, I think, Psycho 2 first, although I did see Psycho on TV and was very disappointed because I thought it was sort of slow and boring. I couldn't appreciate it as a young, I think I was probably 10 when I saw it. I was just starting to appreciate horror films, and I was expecting some big slasher monster sort of character of Norman Bates, and I didn't feel like I got it. I didn't understand the nuance of any of it, so yeah. But later they did a nice sell-through. I bought that, I watched it a bunch of times, and then I got the other films later on. Then it was released on DVD. They had a very bare bones release, and then later on they did some special editions. They just had some little featurettes, stuff like that. There was a couple of like storyboards of the shower scene, and it was known that there were a couple of shots that were actually cut out. There was a shot of Marion collapsing and basically seeing her butt, which people didn't like, and there's a rumour that Hitchcock put that in just to be edited out so the rest of it wouldn't be touched. Not sure if that's true or not, if he really wanted it in there. There's a lot of references to analness in this film, and some people see that that was actually part of it and deliberate, but it's unclear to me what the case of that was. But watching the 60th anniversary, it had some nice featurettes and documentaries, which I'm yet to watch, but it also claims to be uncut. And apparently things were cut out of the film when it was put on TV and onto video, and I'm like, did I miss something? Was it something I didn't see all these years? Was I watching a cut version and didn't know? I've watched this. I watched the murder scenes when I first got it on Blu-ray, and when I looked at the time difference, there was about 10 seconds difference or 13 seconds difference, or not, just a tiny amount of difference between the two different versions of the film, which means there's only a couple of shots that were cut out, literally. And I looked at the shower scene and the other kills. I couldn't spot it. This time I did notice that when Mrs. Bates kills Arbogast, they show the knife stabbing a bunch of times before he screams. So they basically cut out a bunch of the knife stabs and moved the scream up front, and that sequence ends about 5 or 10 seconds shorter than it should have. But that still doesn't account for all the shots. So I don't know what else they cut out. I couldn't see anything at first. I thought the shot of Marion in the bath before she falls might have not been in the original, but I'm like, no, I think it was. I can't find the uncut scenes. I mean, what's uncut out of this? I can't find. There's just those couple of shots, or that one shot of those couple of stabbing movements with the knife. It's the shot where they're facing up and you just see the knife just in the shot, and that's it. There's like a few more of them, that's it. That doesn't account for the whole running time though, so I don't know what was cut out and what they included. I just wanted to mention that. And just the franchise as a whole, the first film was a classic, black and white, iconic. It changed the way cinema was viewed. Once upon a time, I believe people would just walk into cinemas at any point during a film and then just stay for multiple films. Apparently that was okay to do that. You couldn't, they changed it where it's like you cannot enter after the film has started. You have to get there beforehand. No one will be admitted after the film has started. And this was something which is kind of what we do today, where you're expected to be there for the start of the screening and not to go in or out or anything during it and that. And he kind of normalised that, or took it to a more serious, it was taken a bit more seriously than it was back in the day. So that was interesting. That was all part of the advertising campaign. And they do cover all the trailers and the reissue trailers and all that on these releases really well. The original trailer was a 6-minute one of him taking a tour of the house, very different. Now the sequel, they wanted to make a sequel for years, but no one would, Hitchcock wouldn't do it, they wouldn't let him. When he passed, I think around 1980-81, they immediately said, we're doing a sequel. And they got some good people to work on it. It was a good script, good acting, well directed by an Australian director. And it was really good. It was a mystery, and Norman was a sympathetic character, and at the end, he's seen as a victim and he gets to go back to his life. The third film, he's back to his old tricks, and it's a basic slasher. And there are parts of it I really don't like. The sort of classic small town gothic horror feel of the first film has sort of been replaced, what was in the second film as well, but sort of been replaced in the third film as sort of this desolate area you see like tumbleweeds going past the hotel, and just the people are all sleazy, and there's just something really unpleasant about the whole film. And I know horror films are not supposed to be pleasant, but the original one had style and you liked it. It was good to watch. This is sort of a little bit Texas Chainsaw Massacre and some of the remakes that were done in Texas Chainsaw Massacre style, where it's just sort of like the Halloween remakes and Friday the 13th remakes, where it's just sort of trashy, gritty, trying to be a bit more like that, a bit before his time. It was directed by Anthony Perkins. I think he basically did that negotiation-wise, like, I'll be in the film if you let me direct it. Now, the fourth film is much better. It's done by HBO. It's basically seeing Norman Bates' life. He's talking to a woman on a call-in show, and they have a doctor who writes about men who murdered their mothers and matricide. He calls in, starts telling his story. We see Norman's relationship with his mother, Norma, played by Olivia Hussey, and how demented she was and how she abused him and how inappropriate their relationship was. And you're very sympathetic towards Norman, who's played very well by Henry Thomas from E.T., the kid from E.T., of course, grown up. And it's really well done. It was done for HBO, of course, so people didn't give it much respect back in the day. It was sort of a cable TV movie, pay-per-view movie, I think it was, and then it was released straight to video. It was filmed on film, thank God, and it's been cropped and, scanned and restored and looks amazing on widescreen and everything. But I don't know if it was ever screened properly as a film. The video version was full frame. They did film it in full frame, so the widescreen version is cropped. And I do have both versions. And same with Psycho 2. Psycho 2, I guess, was made in part for the video market on some level because they filmed it full frame and they cropped it for the cinema. Usually what they did, they would do 16 by 9, and then that way they could crop a bit off the sides for full frame for TV and a bit off the top and bottom for widescreen. So they didn't, and then they just sort of shot in the middle. A lot of films were doing that by the 70s and 80s, knowing they were going to go to TV and video as well. This film, along with Psycho 2, did that as well, and I'm often torn about which version to watch because you are missing some of the image on the top and bottom, but it's not as important because kind of like the sides aren't as important in the other version, which they knew were going to be cropped for TV because they knew that when they were filming it. But either way, it's great. Now the pilot is a travesty. They could have done a great TV series, a great anthology series based in the Bates Motel, where every week is a different story. It could have been an anthology series, or it could have been a haunted series where the hotel's haunted, or they could have had another actor coming back playing Norman Bates after his old tricks, or they could have just had someone else running the hotel. Instead, they had Norman die, inherit, no person gets the hotel. He tries to run it. He changes it and makes it almost unrecognisable, and then the last half an hour of the TV movie, which is a pilot, which got turned into a TV movie and then put straight to video, is the story of a woman being sort of met by ghosts, and they sort of save her life basically, and that's to show, hey, every episode can be a different person's story who's checking into the hotel, and it's like they just tack that on at the end. It's just absolutely woeful. The only thing that redeems it is they photographed the house well. There's some nice shots of it. That's it. They sort of have a bit of a B story where Norman's mother seems to be haunting the place, but it's actually someone trying to scare the guy out of running the hotel because they want to tear it down and build something else there. And then you have Laurie Petty, who's there as his friend, and she actually pretends to be Mrs. Bates to scare the guys pretending to be Mrs. Bates who's trying to scare him. It's just horrible. Now, the remake is sort of a shot-for-shot or scene-for-scene remake, and it's very questionable as to was this done seriously or was it done as a joke on Hollywood, who was just remaking sequels without any artistic merit and just sort of regurgitating IP. And was Gus Van Sant trying to have a comment on that by basically doing an almost shot-to-shot, certainly scene-to-scene remake of the original film? Or was he trying to really remake it and make it a real film? It's hard to tell. They changed a couple of key factors. When Norman attacks people, instead of going straight into the music everyone's craving, they pause for a few seconds just to disrupt us. Like, what's happening? This is not what I was expecting. And then adding extra insert shots that make no sense to the second murder. Missing the great shot of the police, the close-up of the cop's face that scares Marion in the car when she wakes up. There are just little things that just don't work. But as a film overall, it does work. Vince Vaughn isn't sympathetic, isn't believable, is innocent. You don't you're not on his side for a second, whereas Norman, you're always on his side. The poor thing, you just wanted him to, sort out his mother and, find some nice girl and settle down, I think is what people wanted for little Norman Bates, but didn't quite go that way. Anne Heche plays Marion. She's not very sympathetic. She has an element of the sort of anal retentiveness that Janet Leigh managed to convey, but it's on a whole another level in this film, and Anne Heche wasn't very popular at the time. She was with Ellen, a lot of people hated her. And the film, I don't think, did well. Critics had a real thing with it, and I don't know what to make of it now. I watched it, I'm like, it's not that bad, but I just don't understand why it exists and what they're trying to do and how they could have gotten so many iconic elements wrong. Or was he trying to do something really different? I just don't know, but that's the Psycho franchise. I'm going to go. Feel free to share, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think of the Psycho films. I do love them, and it was nice to revisit them and revisit the Bates Motel and spend another night in the Bates Motel.